Welcome to United Jews channel.
What do you guys think about the future? It looks like the end of racism is not really going to happen in any future, like not in the next 5 years. And
No.
what we really need to do is try to push for education for our kids, so that our kids know the history, know how to have a discussion with anybody who throws any point about whiteness, Judaism, about oppression. Can you recommend anything for the adults? And we talked a lot about young generation. How about adults? We as adults, a lot of us work somewhere where we are afraid to speak up. Do you have any advice for people like that?
It's actually it might not be popular advice, but be careful, because see, I worked when I was working in telecommunications, I was in a union. I was in the telecommunications worker union 407, and I went to a union thing because I was a shop steward, right? And when I was there, this lady came walking in, and I'm not joking, she was wearing a keffiyeh and carrying a Palestinian flag. Now, this was a union event in Calgary, Alberta, where, like, we're considered to be the conservative part of Canada. This is not like the liberal hippie area, right? So I said to her, I said, why are you wearing that? And she told me, like, to fight oppression and blah, blah, blah. And I made the mistake of confronting her, and no word of a lie, within about 3 or 4 months, I noticed that people weren't coming to me anymore with union concerns. And I used to be actually one of the more popular stewards because I was really good at my job. Usually if I, went against the company, we won. So it was interesting to me that all of a sudden it was like people would literally whisper, Ryan's a Zionist. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course I am. I believe in the right of Jewish people to have self-determination on their ancestral land. That's what Zionist means. But, and I know this is for especially people in California, I mean, you're going to end up being a pariah if you speak out too hard. Now, that doesn't mean that you should just knuckle under and bow your head. It means that you need to be strategic. So you have to pick your hills to die on. So something like this idiocy with the high school curriculum, that's something where you would stand up and speak out. Why? Because that's a fairly simple and easy one. You're basically saying, I don't want the California school system to teach lies. I only want them to teach the truth with no editorializing, no opinions, just facts, right? That's a consistent opinion. So that's an easy one to defend. You don't have to get involved in any of the arguments about Zionism or anything. You just basically say, I want consistency and honesty, right? And that's an easy thing to defend for anybody, because what kind of asshole is going to tell you, no, you can't have consistency and honesty at school? They're going to look like an idiot in front of everybody else. You just won that fight. So it's all about picking your hill and being really strategic. Also, Masha can tell you, on social media, there are lots of different groups where there are people sharing articles, discussing things. I mean, some of those are really great resources, and you can find a lot of support there too if you're having some issues.
Well, now I know what to do as a parent. I need to actually get closer look at the curriculum of my kids. My question now is about, for example, people whose kids grown up or who don't have kids yet. They are afraid to talk, and they talk on their Facebook groups, little Facebook groups. They're pretty open, but they're closed groups, and that's why they can openly discuss it. But however, they're very quiet with their peers at work. They don't say anything. They hear lots of stuff that disagree, and they just smile or say, okay, yes, agree, but they do not agree, and it's all inside of them. It's just, they hate this.
Tatiana, and I will disagree with Ryan in a way that, here's the thing, keeping quiet doesn't work anymore. It's only getting worse. I have a friend who worked at a investment company, a very big investment company, and her coworker, they had cubicles because it's all open space, of course, and her coworker hung the shrinking map of Palestine in her own cubicle, but it was right across from where that my friend sat, right? And she came to me and she said, Mash, what do I do, right?
So again,
And
Masha, I'm not saying be quiet. I'm saying choose your hills. That would be a hill.
Exactly, because some
Right.
companies
That
have
would
very
definitely be a hill.
toxic, there's
Right.
toxic environment in many workplaces.
correct.
Exactly.
Correct. So, she chose to go the HR route. It took, I don't know, 9 months. And eventually they made that person take down that map because it's a political statement. Political statements are not allowed in a workspace, right? But I also, I can tell you what happened to me when I still worked in the hospital. So my awakening, part of my awakening as a Zionist was 2008, 2009, December, January, it was cast-led in Israel. It was the first Gaza war. Before Facebook existed, before YouTube was, right, it was all we distributed information by email, right? And I was so shaken by that war that I spammed my coworkers with articles and with things about Israel. And my car, my car was unique in the Bay Area. I drove an Odyssey, Honda Odyssey. It's the biggest minivan was at the time. And every day I would put up new flyers, listovki, right? Like legitimately, like war style listovki of information, this many rockets fell on Israel today. What would you do, if you had 15 seconds to hide, right? My car was plastered with Israeli flags, and every day there was new flyers, and every day people would call me, oh yeah, we saw you driving down 101. And at some point my coworkers probably grew tired of it, right? Because that's all I talked about. But I can tell you that in 2014, when the 3 boys got abducted, and of course I was posting on Facebook, but at that time I didn't work, I was on maternity leave. My coworkers individually were reaching out to me and telling me, you're the only source of information we have, and we go to your Facebook for information. And they would ask me questions. They did it quietly. They did not do it, right? They would just text me or they would direct message me. So we all need to become sources of information for our coworkers. Even if they don't do it publicly, they will come to you.
100%, I agree. One thing I would say about your friend there that had the shrinking map, this is like that to me would have been a hill. That would have been something where I would push back hard. The way I would have pushed back is I would have downloaded that map, the actual map that
Right.
shows the opposite, right? I mean, and then if they complained about that, then you just say to HR, well, if it's political statements, then they should both be taken down, right?
Right.
I think that it's not so much about fighting harder, it's more about fighting smarter. Because the last thing we want to be, like, I'm sure you guys have noticed that a lot of these people are now playing the victim. Oh my God, the evil Jews are getting me fired because I said something about the Jews. And it's like, did you not just hear what you just said? You literally just said something bad about the Jews and you're upset because you're getting fired for saying something bad about the Jews. Like,
Right.
if you said the same thing about any other group, you'd get fired as well.
Right, but not just saying, right? There's a case of the doctor in the Cleveland clinic, right? She tweeted, if I have a Jewish patient, I'll prescribe the wrong medicine, right? Yeah. She is now disbarred.
Yeah,
that's amazing. It's an amazing accomplishment. But what can we do in everyday life? So before I was a chief Zionist officer of Club Z, that's my official title. On my Gmail, it was Masha, a Zionist. Actually, I put unapologetic Zionist. And I didn't know that a couple of coworkers complained about it. And the manager said, this is a private email. She can do whatever the heck she wants, right? You wear a little Israeli pin flag on your jacket, right? Yep. You make it known that you are a Zionist. And that will already stop a lot of the hateful comments that somebody will do in front of you. and it'll shut down a lot of things. And that's, I don't care. Listen, I believe in freedom of speech. I believe that people could say anything they want. I also believe in consequences, right? You say nonsense, there should be consequences for you. And
Absolutely.
I'm totally happy if anti-Semites still exist. I want them to crawl back to their holes and talk to themselves and not to my children. That's all.
Sunlight's the best disinfectant. Like when you can expose those people. I mean, if you Google the name Tony Hall, you're going to find that he was a university professor at the University of Lethbridge. I started dealing with Tony because he showed up at a bunch of my events. I used to organize Native protest things in Calgary. He showed up at a bunch of my events and started spreading the Jews did 9/11. And he started talking about how Israel is like this horrible place and blah, blah, blah. This is long before I really got too involved in this struggle. And so I was kind of a little bit disgusted with the guy. But what I did was I went and sat in his class, because anybody can audit a class, which means you can attend at least one class for free.
Right.
So I didn't say anything. I sat in the back and I took notes. And the notes that I took were enough to get the provost at the university to suspend him without pay. Now, the problem was the university didn't follow their own process and protocol. So he sued them and took them to court. Now, this is the best part, though. He ended up getting his job back, but then they ended up taking him to the Human Rights Tribunal. So the university took their own professor to the Human Rights Tribunal, and I didn't have to do any of it. All I did was send them a couple letters saying, this is what he was saying in public to his students, and I have recordings. So anybody can do stuff like that. And Masha's 100% right. The more visible you are, like people, and I know this, Masha's not going to like this, but I know people in the Bay Area that will send me messages saying, I saw your friend Masha at this thing. I wish I could do stuff like that. Like, and I tell them, you could. This is the whole point. When I go to California, I'm usually there just to visit friends. And one time I got there and I found out that they were going to do they were protesting a Hanukkah event. Okay. Tell me that that's not anti-Semitic. They weren't protesting Zionists. They were protesting Jews celebrating Hanukkah. So I found out where they were going to do it and what time. And I went there half an hour early and I looked to see where the best place would be if you really want to annoy people and get in their way, because I figured that's where they're going to go. I went there half an hour ahead of them, and then I went and stood there with a big Israeli flag. So they showed up with their illegal sound system and all of their flags, and they walked over and they tried to intimidate me to leave. Now, you can't really tell because we're on a computer, but you can ask Masha. I'm not a physically small human being. So they were trying to intimidate me. They're all like 5'3". They look like Oompa Loompas. And they're all like, you need to move, you need to move. And I was like, no, I was here first. I'm here to support the people having, a Hanukkah dinner. So I'm here to support them. And they were like, well, we're here to protest. And I was like, well, these are difficult times. You'll have to move down the street. And it was actually really funny. They were getting really upset. But anybody can do stuff like that. It doesn't take like a large amount of intelligence to look on a Facebook group and see, oh, they're having a protest at this time. I'll just go there a little bit ahead of time and take an Israeli flag.
Right.
Well, the only difference is, I just want to mention, the only difference is that if, for example, we live in San Francisco and we protest, I mean, we come out on the street of San Francisco, people literally can find out where we live. Right now, it's so easy. And I think a lot of people are physically afraid.
That protest was in San Francisco. And the only two people that showed up to stand there with me were Faith Metzler, who is about herself is maybe 5'5". She's like a little bubby lady, and her friend B, who's even shorter than her. So there was Ryan and two bubbies, and then there were about 50 asshats. And I'm telling you right now, though, a lot of people that were walking by would come and stand with us, and we had a whole bunch of extra flags. And the people that were there, like another guy his name was Ben Carpenter, another good friend of mine. He showed up a little bit later. Next thing we knew, we had about 30 people standing there. So. I get it. I know, look, I tell people all the time, your safety is paramount. So if you do decide to do something like this, don't go by yourself. Make sure you have somebody filming it. Make sure your camera's out and ready to film. There's lots of little things you can do to protect yourself. But at the same time, like Masha said, don't let fear dictate what you're going to do or not do. Make sure it's your intelligence. Like, weigh it. Is this worth doing? Is the pushback we're going to get worth it, because the truth is, a lot of times the pushback is actually the reward. Because when they start freaking out and screaming about the fact that there were pro-Israel people that showed up and ruined their little Jew hate party, you know, that's a win for us.
So I'm part of this new movement called End Jew Hatred. And the message is very simple. The message is one message, End Jew Hatred, right? So what we're doing, we did a protest rally in Los Angeles 2 weeks ago. And next week on Tuesday, we're hosting a rally in San Jose in front of Zoom headquarters. And what we're asking Zoom is very simple. San Francisco State University is hosting a convicted, unrepentant terrorist, Leila Khaled, who is responsible for lives of people who she killed, right? She hijacked 2 airplanes. Like, this is akin to Osama bin Laden have given a platform on Zoom in 2005, 2006, after he committed his murders, right? Let's give him a platform, right? Now, San Francisco State has received endless petitions and endless letters and endless articles have been written how bemoaning that San Francisco State is again doing something bad and anti-Semitic, and they don't care. But we're targeting corporations, and in this case, we're targeting Zoom because they're giving platform to a known convicted terrorist. By the way, even if COVID was not around, she still would have been on Zoom because she's not allowed in the US. She was deported to the US because she lied on her immigration papers. And now she's in some hole in Amman, I think. And we need people to show up. People don't show up because they're afraid. People don't show up because they're lazy. And I have no tolerance for that anymore. You know what? I don't. Because if American Jews did not march for us in 1970s and 80s, we would still be behind the Iron Curtain. And if Russian Jews did not move to, you know, Palestine in the 1910s and 1920s, we would not have a country. And by the way, this is our time to stand up. We cannot be, nobody is putting a gun to our heads. Nobody's threatening our physical life. We might be uncomfortable. We might have to, you know, take some time off work. We might get into a fight with our kids because we want them to go to Club Z or some other educational organization. But we have to do it, because if we don't do it, the only Jewish people that will remain in America will be the Orthodox Jews, because everybody else will just you wouldn't want it. Our children would not want to be Jewish, because everything is difficult and associated with conflict.
We have the power to sue people, sue organizations, don't we? Where are the Jewish lawyers? Are they on our side? How can we work with them and all of that? Can you guys comment?
I can, Ryan, can I jump in? So
Yeah.
I was a plaintiff against San Francisco State University, right? When they did, when they allowed the mob to interrupt an event with Jerusalem mayor at the time, Nir Barkat, right? And we have a settlement with the university. And I can tell you, if they go ahead with that event, we will be looking at, you know, at the terms of the contractual agreement that we have with them, because pretty much I'm sure they're breaking it by holding this event, right? The other thing is Zoom Corporation providing the platform to this event is they're providing material support to a terrorist. That's illegal in the United States, right? So we're looking into that. There are let's say ethnic studies model curriculum, right? I personally know of probably 3-4 Jewish lawyers who are going through that. The thing is, everybody has their own specialty, right? The lawyer can tell you what is wrong with these things, and they can see if there is a case to be made, because there's very specific, you can't just sue somebody for right? You have to have, you have to hit specific things. But the activists are the ones who have to do the job of making the sound, right? We have to bring it to the lawyers first, because the lawyers, you know, this is not a, you know, a profitable thing to do, to be a lawyer who goes sues anti-Semites, because, you know, you're not going to make any money of it. So
Well, we
they
want
need
more
to,
education on how to get everything together and who to send it to, you know, because all of us little by little gathering together. And, you know, I have a political group on Facebook.
right. Our problem is that finding people who will then stand and say, so I'll give you an example. University of Southern California, right? The most famous is the young lady Rose, what's her name? What's her last name? Rose Riches, I think, right? She was forced to resign her position, right? But then she doesn't want to talk to anybody. She doesn't want to follow up. Oh my God, no, sorry. So we need people then to declare that, yes, people are afraid to be plaintiffs on these lawsuits. It was very difficult for us to find students to sue San Francisco State because they're afraid, right?
And
So,
how long
and
does
that's
it
where
take?
adults,
That takes a year probably of students' life to be involved.
it takes years.
Oh, years. Oh, wow.
It takes years. It takes years because the legal system is extremely slow, right? But we need to raise our kids in a way that they need to understand that standing up for right things will cost them. And they need to be willing to take that cost. That's it. We're standing on shoulders of other people who have taken the cost, who have paid the price. And now it's our turn. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I'll give you an example again. I have, right now, I was talking to a parent who was listening, you know, all the kids on Zoom school, right? So she happened to walk into the room on 9/11 last Friday. And the teacher showing the slide, and it says there, you know, why did Osama bin Laden declare jihad against America? Because America is supporting Israel because of foreign policy, right? Now we have a screenshot, and we have another screenshot where this teacher, same teacher, is counting the terrorists among the victims who died on 9/11, of the casualties, right? We wrote a letter to the school, but the parent needs to send that letter, or they need to allow me to send that letter. But they're afraid, and their student, their child is afraid. And that's what we have to, you know, courage is the most difficult virtue. It's the most challenging virtue. But we need to start raising courageous children, and we need to ourselves show them what that courage looks like.
I would love to support that particular woman, mother, and the child. We have a lot of people who can support them in terms of motivate them and say that they're doing not for just their kid, they are doing it for all of us. And it's very important because we cannot be plaintiffs. We were not there. We're not in that school district. We were not in that class. We're not with that teacher. But if we were, we would join. So I don't know if it's possible to unite us somehow, because we do have people, you know, in our, for example, Facebook group who could help if that person was a part of the community, like our little community. So I don't know how unite all of us, because we have a lot of passionate people, a lot of people who care. So, you know, a Russian Jewish community, if we keep, you know, saying this term, there are lots of people who care and who want to make changes. Yes, many of us are afraid to go fight on the street, right? I personally cannot, because I have mobility issues, so unfortunately I cannot even go. But I would motivate other people. I would make phone calls. I would personally call, you know, write to people. I would do anything to help organize or ask people to show up. So don't discount me if I personally cannot be there, but I can do a lot of work. So, and we have lots of people like this, like me. So please, Masha, when you hear about something happening, this needs to be known, and the entire Bay Area should know about it. And I think our community is large, but it's actually quite small as well in terms of people know each other, okay? And people, you make a Facebook event and you advertise it, and one thing you can do, people might not show up, but everybody will be talking about and they will know this is happening. This is number one, right? All of this cannot happen in one day, but people should know that this thing's happening. This is why we advertise. This is why we ask you to come. And one day they will show up. Not everyone is ready to show up. But if they hear more about these instances, one day they will show up. I think it's a gradual process. So some people are ready to jump in, others are like afraid and they will wait, but they will jump third time or fourth time this happens. So I do believe, I have a belief that if we're together, we can together come in and fight that thing. You know, we can be plaintiffs, we can write things.
Much nicer than me. I just need people to show.
You know, I've seen enthusiasm in people. I do think we just keep fighting. We need to keep fighting, and we need to unite people and actually tell them that this is happening. The thing you told me about, this is huge. I didn't hear about it. I didn't know. It looks like it's very recent. It's just, you know, 6 days ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. You shared with us here, but I didn't know. How come? Was it somebody in a Russian-speaking community or not? And it's not that it matters.
It's not. And here's the thing, right? I'm bound by what this family is allowing me to do.
Oh, I see. They're afraid. I see.
Right. They're afraid. And they're not, that's, you know, and imagine it's your son, right?
Oh,
and
I would fight. I would do something.
Tell you, Mom, I'm new in the school. I don't want to be that kid. So I sympathize. I completely sympathize, but I still think that, you know, we're standing on the shoulders of other people's courage. It's our turn to be courageous.
Totally agree
100%.
with you. On that note, guys, I think we need to wrap it up. It's a great discussion, and I welcome all of you on our channel anytime. Please, we're so fortunate to have you, Ryan, and you are a special guest. Thank you very much. And Masha, we actually never met in person, so it's very nice to see you. So I hope we'll be in touch and we'll share information and we'll fight together.
All right, and Shana Tova.
Shana Tova. Shana Tova.
You're an honorary Jew, so Shana Tova to you, and to both of you later.
All right, take care, guys. Bye.